Hey everybody, the Ring Generals, Nick Nenad, Jesse Chaparro, and the RKJ Man here. We just wanted to thank everybody that viewed our content last week. Over 5,000 views and hits on our content on YouTube, and even more on Instagram and Twitter. So we just wanted to thank everybody for watching our stuff and paying attention to the Ring Generals.
Thank you guys. I mean, I'm astonished. Like, this is the most we got out of them, and I hope we keep this up. And you guys love our stuff. I hope you guys keep it up, and like, subscribe, and comment.
Hey man, thank y'all so much for joining us on this journey. We started out, in our college and freaking sharing mics and disrupting classes because we were just having good times. Then we moved to a studio where we had to fight for studio time, and now we're doing this thing on Skype because of the pandemic. But through it all, you guys have been amazing. But as always, raise a glass in the sky and salute the Ring Generals.
That's what's up.
It's the sauce, Alexander.
This is Watts.
Make sure like, subscribe, Ring General Podcast.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Ring Generals, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter.
Absolutely.
Do it, or I will get you.
And you're watching the Ring General Podcast. Turn this man around. Subscribe, like, and comment.
But raise a glass in the sky and salute the Ring Generals.
That's right.
Welcome, everybody, to the Ring Generals podcast. I am Nick Nenad, and alongside me is Jesse Chaparro.
What's up, guys? What's cooking, jabronis?
And, of course, the RKJ Man.
Let's talk that talk, y'all. Hypocritical Nick. We almost fought on Twitter, brother.
Oh boy, did I want to say so much more to you than I will say to you on this podcast today. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. We, of course, have to talk about AEW, AEW Revolution, AEW Dynamite. There's been a lot of stuff going on. If you're a wrestling fan, you know what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Also, we'll be reviewing UFC 259, 3 championship fights, 1 title changed hands in the most controversial fashion I've ever seen. And of course, Israel Adesanya is not the champ after the night. So we'll get into that and get all 3 of our thoughts on that. And we're going to start the podcast with a little WWE because we want to pump ourselves up to get angry. So I want to at least get angry so I can get mad at Ryan and the RKJ Man a little bit later today. I wanted to explain something real quick. If you guys see, I have a little what looks like a mouse under my eye.
You got beat.
It's nothing serious. Eric Santos just beat the shit out of me. That's all. So we're gonna move on to the WWE now. No, I'm kidding. It's a eye oil issue. It's not anything serious. So I didn't get beat up or anything. I know you guys are so concerned about my health, especially with how mad I was getting at RKJ Man on Twitter that I might have blown the gasket. I literally did in my face. So let's start. Yeah, let's start with WWE today. We're gonna just talk about a report from WrestleVotes that explained that essentially WWE has no plans as of right now for WrestleMania. They've only announced 2 matches, Roman Reigns versus Edge and Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. And besides that, they're essentially starting over and creating WrestleMania from scratch. We are 29 days away from the day we are recording right now. RKJ Man, I'm tossing to you first. Your thoughts on this bullshit?
First of all, I'm going to take a nice long drink because this is going to be a long one.
Hey.
That's some good shit right there, man. Woo!
Yeah, Pedialyte.
So I am honestly not surprised because I figured this was going to happen, especially right now with the pandemic and everything like that. I mean, they just barely announced ticket sales. My frustration is this. What are we doing here with Roman Reigns and Edge? Okay, I see a lot of people speculating that we're going to get a triple threat match between Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, and Edge. And I honestly think that could possibly happen with the way this storyline's going. But if that was the case, they could have just reversed this mistake by having Daniel Bryan win the Royal Rumble in the first damn place, or having Edge face Drew McIntyre in the first place. And then over on the other side, you've got Bobby Lashley. Okay. Bobby Lashley looks like a complete badass. That entrance on Monday Night Raw the other night was fucking phenomenal. It's great. I loved it. Here's the problem, though. Where's Brock Lesnar? That's the matchup we want to see. And during this time, in this pandemic, unless Vince McMahon got word from Brock Lesnar, unless he figured something out with Canada and said, look, we can get him over here, I don't see it happening. So really, to be honest with you, all these matches seem like they're pretty clear cut in stone. So I don't know what Vince McMahon has up his sleeve. But whatever he has up his sleeve is worrisome to me, because I've been hearing reports that apparently him and Bruce Pritchard have been keeping the plans close to the vest. And we're a month out from WrestleMania. If I'm a writer for the WWE right now, and I'm writing during our most important time, I need to know exactly where we're going with every single character. Every single person. Why? Because there has to be an end game to everything. WrestleMania is the end game to everything, and there is none. So my frustration is this: where are we going? And it's the question I've been asking for months, since September when me and you did that podcast, Nick. Is what is your plan, Vince, for Roman Reigns? What is your plan for WrestleMania? I have no freaking clue. And honestly, I'm out of ideas and I'm petrified. I might just end up watching the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers on that day and just forget about it, because they playing on that day. I might as well just forget about watching WrestleMania on night one until later on. I don't want to be depressed.
I'll say this too. I'm with you, RKJ, on being a little scared of what's going to happen, because we're supposed to be excited about WrestleMania. And I can't remember exactly what podcast I came on here and told you guys I feared that I was not going to give a shit about WrestleMania. It's even worse now. I'm glad that The Miz isn't the WWE champion and all that BS is done. And I'm glad they've at least announced that Roman Reigns and Edge are going to have a match, and that Daniel Bryan's in the title picture, and that Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair are going to have their match, which I'm the most excited about. But the fact that we don't have clear storylines a month away from WrestleMania, and then we hear the reports that there's no clear storylines, and that they don't know what they're doing, and they're hiding it. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So yeah, I guess there's the thought that we don't know what's going to happen, and the wrestlers don't know what's going to happen, and the writers don't know what's going to happen. So we should all just accept it and be excited. But what we've seen for the last 2 years is shitty booking, shitty storylines, and bad professional wrestling. So why would we think this is a good idea when it's been a fucking bad idea for the last 2 years and even further along? I kind of agree. Who's the guy that's been talking shit to Randy Orton, the rapper? I'm forgetting his name right now. What's his name?
Soulja Boy, tell him.
So I kind of agree with Soulja Boy a little bit. He went on a little tirade that we're not going to play on this podcast. It's too vulgar, all that stuff. But Soulja Boy kind of explained, he said, I checked out wrestling. I checked out Monday Night Raw. He didn't say it like I'm saying. I'm saying it's super white. He didn't say it like this. Okay, I'm just telling you that right now.
Can I say what he said, Nick? Can I say what he said, Nick?
We don't need it. We don't need it. But here's the thing. I will revert to RKJ, man, if there's anything I can't say to him. But let me just say, he went on a tirade and he said he talked about Monday Night Raw, and he watched it and he said, maybe I was gonna look to show some respect, and Randy's spitting out goo out of his mouth, and he's like, that's exactly why I'm saying it's fake, and he's right. It's bullshit. We don't want to see stuff coming out of people's mouths. Nobody wants to see Orton versus Bray Wyatt. It should have happened at the Royal Rumble or a pay-per-view prior. There's so much wrong right now. And then when we hear there's nothing planned, do you guys go to restaurants and businesses that have no plan? No. So why would I sit here and get excited and watch WrestleMania and buy the stupid Peacock network for this BS? It's so frustrating.
Hey, really quickly, I have an idea, okay? Maybe Alexa Bliss is not talking about Bray Wyatt the whole time. Maybe she's talking about Soulja Boy, okay? Maybe this whole thing is leading to a Soulja Boy Randy Orton match at WrestleMania. This is one of the best feuds I think they've ever done. And this is just not even being booked.
It's better than Bad Bunny. I mean, the fact that the fact that the two planned things potentially could be a Soulja Boy interaction with Randy Orton and Bad Bunny. What are we doing? I get that AEW had Shaq and all that stuff, but that's understandable. We all expected that, right? And it ended up being good. We didn't talk about it on this podcast, but Shaq going through two tables, I'll never forget, okay?
Yeah.
I don't. What's going to happen with Bad Bunny and these celebrities coming in? It's like, I guess RKJ, you're right. They have no plans, so I guess we could expect Soulja Boy to face Randy Orton, which would be what, a squash match in a minute, because Soulja Boy's this skinny non-wrestler that's not big at all, that would get his ass kicked by a 230-pound Randy Orton. Or Jesse, I'll give you the Jesse.
Crack cocaine.
This kind
Not
of
if he's on crack cocaine.
Wait, hold on, RKJ. You're talking about crack cocaine. I need to hear Jesse's thoughts on it.
This kind of reminds me of the times where they brought in Snoop Dogg in the ring fighting, the Rock or anybody, or Donald Trump, the former president, against Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, come on.
The difference with that, Jesse, is all that stuff was planned out long time in advance, and that's why the Trump stuff worked, and that's why Snoop Dogg worked, and that's why The Rock worked, right? Because there was long-term plans. They don't know what they're doing, so Bad Bunny doesn't know what he's doing. If Soulja Boy comes in, he doesn't know what he's doing. Hell, Randy Orton doesn't know what he's doing. It's ridiculous.
It is.
It's ridiculous. RKJ, go ahead. I gotta pass the, because I know you're more pissed than I am. So really, go ahead.
Bow Wow also wants to be a wrestler too.
Okay, it's enough. It's enough. This is what WWE is. This is what WWE is now, right? It's just a cartoon of celebrities showing up. It's like, what is it like? It's like the Tonight Show now that it's turned into. There's just celebrities that come on every night and talk about things. SNL. Very good example.
Hey man, look, all I know is this. It's been a while since Soulja Boy and Bow Wow paired together. I would love to see a tag team match. You know what? Soulja Boy, Bow Wow, Randy Orton, and a partner of his choosing. That would be phenomenal. And then in the middle of it, they do Marco Polo from back in the day.
No, RKJ, man, no. It's got to go back to Bow Wow and Chris Brown, okay? I mean, without the Rihanna shit.
Well, we know Chris Brown can beat people up.
Let's not talk about Chris Brown. We don't want him to get around a ring with Alexa Bliss when he's upset. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not do that with Chris Brown.
Yeah, man, it's the WWE's choice. They can bring Chris Brown in if they want to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say something terrible. I'm not going to say it.
Look, wrestling sucks right now. It sucks on both fronts right now. It sucks on both fronts.
I disagree, and we're going to get to that later. WWE sucks, and AEW does not, but go on.
And the fact of the matter being is this. We're on the road to WrestleMania. For those of you who are just watching this for the first time, the road to WrestleMania is like the NFL playoffs. WrestleMania is the Super Bowl. The goal is to get to the Super Bowl. You want to get to WrestleMania. You want to have the best storyline and the best position on the card. And right now, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Besides, I don't know, Soulja Boy and Randy Orton, I guess. I guess they're going to have a few because I'm more invested in that than I am Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton because Bray Wyatt has taken forever to come back. I mean, when we had this, maybe. I don't know. His character sure is dead. I mean, back in the day, WrestleMania, 15 or whatnot, The Undertaker and Kane had their build up to WrestleMania, their first fight, and it was phenomenal. By this time, The Undertaker had shown up already, and they were actively getting into it at this point. I don't know how long it's going to take for Bray Wyatt to come back on. And another thing I have a problem with is, why are we getting Fastlane? We do not need Fastlane. The only reason why I think we're getting Fastlane is because they want to slowly transition everything to the Peacock network. They're trying to make everything as easy as possible. So when it gets to WrestleMania, everything is ready to rock and roll. But you're still going to have issues with that situation because we knew what happened the last time when the WWE network first started. Glitches, people not being able to access the stream, everything else going down. A lot of people upset, mad, canceling their networks. Things are going to happen. So doing a pay-per-view just to see how your transition's going to go for the network, there's no point in doing that. You're ruining the storylines at this point.
Yeah, and you see that this is not just affecting WWE too. It's affecting NXT. NXT apparently is not going to be involved in WrestleMania. We now have what looked like a rift between Triple H and Vince on the women's tag team titles because we all assumed Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez were going to win the titles against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. They don't. So they just create titles and give them to the girls. Like this is everything's just being is on the fly, and it's not good unpredictability. I've always talked about on this podcast, I like unpredictability in pro wrestling, right? We didn't know what the exploding barbed wire match was going to be. That's unpredictability, right? We didn't know who the surprise person was. Unpredictability, right? We didn't know how Shaq was going to perform in the ring. It's unpredictability. We didn't know what was going to happen with the Inner Circle and MJF. Now we know because it was unpredictable. Not knowing anything that's going on and there's a difference between, it being predictable and just plain not understanding what's going on. Being confused. And right now I'm confused with WWE. I don't know what's going on besides the top main feuds, and that's only 2 of them. Asuka's the women's champion, and she has done nothing for like 2 months. Drew McIntyre, goes on this run, saves WWE during the pandemic. One of the guys, right? He was there even before Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns was at home, right? And McIntyre just loses a match, and then now is just in some random battle with Sheamus, right? Loses the WWE Championship to The Miz, and just doesn't get a rematch, right? Now another guy has the title. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I almost want to move on because I feel like we're just going to shit on the product for another 10 minutes. And, I'd rather shit on our KJ man. So let's move on. Jesse, you didn't get to speak that much on that topic. I'll give you the last words. Your last thoughts on this whole WrestleMania season.
I mean, as for the making up titles for women's matches, it's just so damn botched. It's so fucked up. I mean, it's just dumb. It's just dumb and hopeless. I mean, why in the hell create for titles that should not exist and not have more women competing for just that one single title, or if not, tag team titles. As for titles changing, Bobby Lashley is a great champion. But Miz, I mean, it's pretty predictable. I even called also Edge facing Roman Reigns once he won his last match in the Royal Rumble. So I mean, it's just pure BS right now. I'm so damn confused. This is the most confused, and I'm not even surprised.
Well, it's like we're supposed to be getting into it, and obviously we have a lot to cover. We had a giant UFC card. We had giant AEW stuff going on. 2 years ago, we didn't have an AEW thing to look forward to, right? We didn't have. I mean, UFC was big time, but I don't think they'd ever put on a card like this in March, right? So there is some stuff that's impeding our view of it that's making us watch less WWE. But then when you hear what's going on, we don't want to. Are any of you guys excited about Friday Night SmackDown tomorrow?
Nope.
Is anybody legitimately excited? Right?
That?
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably watch it just because of podcast sake, but it's also not the go home show. And it's I don't know. I mean, just even look at the 2 go home shows. WWE's go home show compared to AEW's go home show before Revolution. That's how you do it with AEW. Not WWE just doesn't care, it seems like, right? And clearly they don't because they don't have any storylines, right? So I don't know who the fuck the fuck are these writers getting paid for, though? What are these guys getting paid for? It's ridiculous. All right.
Hold on, real quick.
Go ahead.
One last thing. I know this is going on. The WWE is thinking in the back of their minds, hey, we got fans here. These fans are so grateful and so satisfied with just being able to get up out of the house and be able to go to a wrestling show for the first time in a year that maybe it doesn't even matter how shitty we book WrestleMania. Nope, that's not true. We still see that shit, and we're still going to criticize that.
Absolutely. You think those AEW fans that live in Jacksonville are going to be just clearing their schedules in April to go to WrestleMania no. It's gonna be interesting to see what the ticket sales look like too, because they have 2 nights to sell, right? It's a lot of people for a pandemic, right? And I'm sure not everybody's gonna be vaccinated by that point, right? So it's gonna, it's gonna be interesting to see how that works. It should be interesting to see how that works just in general. It'll be one of the few events that will go off with that many people. Since the pandemic started, we've heard that the Texas Rangers are going to open up their ballpark 100%. I heard during Dak Prescott's press conference that the Cowboys were going to open their stadium to 100% when the NFL season comes on. Now the NFL obviously starts in September. Baseball starts in April. So it should be interesting to see even how ticket sales work in general, and maybe what AEW will look like in the future when they start touring again. But nonetheless, WrestleMania season sucks. Okay. let's move on to AEW. Lots of controversy here. You guys know about the explosion at the end of the barbed wired death match, right? The exploding barbed wire death match. You all know about the whole Hall of Fame signing, right? And we're also going to talk about in this podcast Dynamite, the explanation for the explosion, what Christian's doing now on AEW, what it looks like he's going to be doing, and obviously what happened at the end of AEW with a new faction being created. So let's get into it. First of all, before we start fighting, Jesse, what was your thoughts on Revolution and then what's happened now on Dynamite?
You know what? Revolution did surprise me. It also kind of upset me a little bit. The reason I say it upset me a little bit, some of those damn matches so damn botched you could tell from a mile away. Seriously. I mean, look, Hashiro versus what's her name? What was it?
Kaoru Shida versus Ryo Mizunami, who nobody knew before a week before, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, that was so damn botched. You could tell like she just waited like for literally 5 minutes just for her to jump on her and kind of throw her down. It's just horrible. As for let's see. I mean, the ladder match was pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Cape Sabian and Sting versus Cage and Stark was pretty good one. Actually, that's the only one that actually had like a good beat to it. As for Omega and Moxley, there's some parts that they kind of overdid it. I mean, it's not the best match, but it's not the worst. And I mean, I could go on all day, but you know my feelings are.
Yeah, I mean, it's the. Let me start with my stuff real quick. I'm going to defend AEW on this podcast today, but I thought that explosion was the pussiest thing I've ever seen too. Okay, so let me just start with that, and then RKJ, I'm going to give you the floor because I want to respond to what you have to say because I'm not going to agree with it. I know it, and so I'll give you the floor. Look, he's chugging his drink. Oh, this is going to get good.
Put that away,
this is going to get good. This might be our best fight on the podcast ever.
Yeah.
So RKJ, when he's done drinking, he'll give his take on AEW. And RKJ, man, talk about everything. So you talk about Dynamite as well. Jesse, real quick, you did not. What do you think about what happened on Dynamite? The explanation of that Omega, they don't really care what happened, and that Eddie Kingston passed out because of stress. And what do you think about that explanation, at least?
I mean, the Eddie Kingston passing out on top of Moxley. Come on. It's horrible. It's like me just pretending to fall down and then my dog tried to come and lick me in my face and try to wake me up. I mean, come on. It's bullshit.
That was a good analogy. That was a perfect analogy for that.
And as for Christian Cage being signed up, I mean, it's a pretty good signing. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's kind of like Paul White, aka Big Show. I mean, I don't know what exactly he's going to be doing, but hopefully he's going to do stuff like Sting, getting some ring time and overall perform well and sell it.
That's it. RKJ, take it away. What are your thoughts on this whole spiel?
When I watched that AEW pay-per-view, well, let me just start off from the beginning of this, okay? All right. Yeah. My Sunday school teacher back in the day said something that has stuck with me for
put an ass beat in
my life right now. Okay. He said this. He was like, "You can take my money all you want. But one thing you cannot take, and I do not want you to take, is my time. I can always make more money. I can't make more time." And on a Sunday night where there was an all-star game going and Meghan Markle and Prince Henry were dominating the whole situation, or Harry or Henry, whatever the guy's name is. I don't really care. And then I found out Tyler Perry was helping them out. I had to go and sit through this AEW Revolution pay-per-view with Christian Cage announced. Now, let's talk about Christian Cage, first of all, because that's what pisses me off. So, Nick, you made a statement that apparently I was excited for Christian Cage. I did not say that over the phone.
You absolutely said that. You said that on the phone earlier in the morning. I said, okay, let me preface. Let me explain. You said you would be excited This is part of my ammo. I'm so glad he's saying it.
No, it's not. You're not telling the truth.
RKJ, man, you said that you'd be excited if Christian was the entrant in the ladder match. That ended up being Ethan Page,
Yes,
by the way.
in the ladder match.
Okay, go ahead.
Not the Hall of Famer. And I picked CM Punk to come back. Because at this point in the game, you have to have somebody big.
And you believe in
hold on. Let me guess. John Cena's coming? John Cena's coming to AEW? No. BS. Come on.
Hold on, really quickly. Well, he's not going to come to AEW if you can't do an explosion right. Or if you have, or you know what, let's do this. Tony Khan had actually announced that Hall of Fame signing situation with Big Show before Christian even signed. Christian confirmed this on the podcast with Renee Young. So that's strike number 1 with Tony Khan. Strike number 2, Christian. This is the same guy in 2002 who had a baby gimmick. Yes, my niece did not cry and complain and moan as much as Christian did in 2002. And you know why Vince gave him that gimmick? He gave him that gimmick because he saw Christian as a whiner and a complainer. Let's move to 2005. 2005, when Christian was Captain Charisma, when he was on fire and he was becoming a potential main eventer, Vince didn't push him when the crowd loved him. Hey, Vince said, you know what? You can go to that crappy promotion, TNA. That's totally fine. I don't give a damn about you. In 2011, when TNA and WWE had some type of talent exchange, guess who they let go to TNA? It was Christian Cage. And now in 2021, Christian goes to AEW, and to make things worse, Christian is still not in the Hall of Fame. The Bella Twins are in the Hall of Fame before Christian Cage.
That's
I don't see this as a huge signing. This is not going to move ratings. This isn't going to do anything for AEW. This is just basically bullshit. And like I said before, I would criticize AEW when they did something I disagreed with, and I was absolutely going to pat them on the back and applaud them when they did things that I love and agreed with. And I have been the biggest supporter of AEW on this podcast. Nick, you can say this too, because you weren't supporting AEW at the first point. When AEW first came around, you were not supporting them. I supported them.
Yeah, I supported
them. It's not that they
didn't for AEW, but I said you cannot become WCW/TNA 2.0. You want to get John Cena, you want to get CM Punk, you got to make the right moves. They were making those right moves, and then they've taken a step backwards. And then also, what the hell is going on with the production? From the stupid explosion to the stupid audio sounds on Dynamite last night, I don't know what's going on, but I've had enough of this. It's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. I can understand those first couple of shows having audio issues, ring issues, music issues, certain things not being right. You're trying out the kinks. Tony Khan was new at this, but now he's been put by the Wrestling Observer as promoter of the year. So when you're promoter of the year, you have to act a certain way. You have to do things a certain way. And trying to manipulate us and trying to convert this into storyline is absolute bullshit. Just come out and say it. And then he's saying, oh, I don't know what the fans expected. Well, we expected a hell of a lot more than what we got. My mom was in the room with me. She saw it. She was like, that wasn't even an explosion. What is that? So it was a complete waste of our time. And I don't need my time being wasted right now. I do not need it being wasted when I went to bat for AEW multiple times and I've supported them multiple times, but yet some way, somehow, they try to trick us with the Christian signing, which was really not even a signing until the very last minute because Tony Khan counted his chickens before his eggs hatched. What if Christian would have said, you know what? I've got another deal from Vince McMahon. Or what if he would have backed out? Who's it going to be? Who's going to be the major signing? Okay, and then you have the other issue with the explosion or Dynamite having sound issues. There is inconsistency across the board right now with AEW. They need to get back to the basics because right now they are becoming, as a lot of people have said, WCW/TNA 2.0. And I don't need to be seeing that anymore because history has a way of repeating itself. And we all know what's happened to WCW and TNA.
Hold up.
Okay. Go ahead, Jesse. Go ahead.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Who would you guys prefer? Christian Cage AEW or Goldberg WWE? Who would you guys rather have?
Jesse, come on, bro. Goldberg can kiss my fucking ass. All right, I don't want that guy anywhere near my pay-per-view.
Goldberg moves ratings more than Christian Cage.
Oh my God! He's gonna say he likes Goldberg.
I never said I like Goldberg. I just said if AEW were to get Goldberg, I would understand that more than Christian Cage. It doesn't make any sense for me.
Oh,
It doesn't
make
make any
sense.
sense. It does. He's 47 years old.
You already gave away your tell already on this podcast. I got you. I already got you. That's why I'm excited. Okay, here we go. So, okay.
You're excited about my tell? Wow.
I did. Okay,
nice
so
tell.
Okay, J-Man.
Can do tricks.
You're saying you didn't like the pay-per-view. Is that what you're saying? You're saying you thought you wasted your money.
It was a 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10. So you're telling me now. Let me just reel these off. Don't answer each one. You didn't like the Young Bucks versus Chris Jericho and MJF. You didn't like the tag team battle royal. You didn't like Adam Page versus Matt Hardy. You didn't like the Face of the Revolution ladder match, and you didn't like Darby Allin and Sting versus Team Taz. You're telling me you didn't like any of that?
There was something that was pretty good, but the cinematic shit, I'm done with the cinematic shit. And we've seen Bucks and MJF and Chris Jericho a few times already. It's getting kind of boring at this point.
Okay, well, it's fair. I mean, and you don't have to like everything on the show, but to say it's a 1 out of 10. My biggest thing about me criticizing most of this professional wrestling world and RKJ Man here is this giant overreaction to all of this, okay? If WWE did the shit that the AEW just did, we wouldn't even bat an eye. We'd be like, yeah, that was stupid. They bought something. And yeah, they signed some guy. They brought back Goldberg, right? We're going to complain, right? Okay, the difference with this is RKJ, man, like a lot of other fans, would have been fine if Christian would just surprise everybody. I understand. Let me say this before I start defending AEW. I thought the explosion was terrible. Okay, I thought even I loved the ring ropes explosions when they would hit the ropes with the barbed wire on them. Those explosions, even in slow motion, were perfect. Okay, when they went onto the outside, it looked fake, and then obviously the explosion at the end was, you could say, botched, but it also, you know, there's some hints that it might have been storyline, something like that, and obviously I don't think they came up with a storyline right at that moment, like WWE style. I think this was planned out. And I do think a lot of this pay-per-view was overproduced. Okay. I think they're trying to be the best that they can. And in that sense, they went over the top. And I would rather have over the top than, what WWE is doing. Okay. And then, so let me explain the Christian thing. Okay. Again, people would have loved if Christian signed with the company and surprised at some point. If he was the ladder match participant, if he just showed up on the pay-per-view all of a sudden, maybe at the end to save Jon Moxley or something like that, or is involved in any other match, right? Maybe he saves Sting. I don't know what you could do, but I think if Christian debuts on Dynamite or debuts on Revolution, we have no problem with it, and we go, you know what? He's a little older, but he hasn't wrestled in a bunch of years, and we haven't seen Christian. We've heard he's one of the best minds in pro wrestling, so we're excited. Okay, I understand that the way they announced the signing was that it only, it boxed in some people, right? A guy like Christian isn't a more profile name than Brock Lesnar, John Cena, CM Punk, Kurt Angle, all these other guys that people thought it might be, okay? But he's not wrong. Christian is a Hall of Famer. It's the fans overthinking the entire thing. Again, you can believe Santa Claus is real, but the reality is he's not really coming down your chimney on Christmas Eve. It's your parents. In this realm, your parents are Christian, and CM Punk and John Cena and Brock Lesnar are Santa Claus. It was not realistic, and yes, it was fun to talk about it, but if you actually thought those guys were coming back, you are an idiot. That's all I'm going to say. RKJ, are you one of these idiots that I talked about thinking that those guys were actually going to show up?
First of all, fuck Santa Claus. Okay, I don't care about him, and I plan to tell my niece very soon that Santa Claus is not real in the near future. Okay, I'm just get it out of the way because it was told to me at 5 years old that Santa Claus is not real. Look,
ruin a childhood like that, man.
Gonna ruin it. Yeah. See what kind of person we're dealing with, Jesse here. This is the guy we're trying to. If you guys want to listen to RKJ, who's going to tell his niece about Santa Claus when she's like 3, you can listen to him. If you want to listen to me, who's not going to tell any niece that's 3, 4 years old about Santa Claus, you can go with me.
Look, all I know is this. I'm not going to freaking tell my niece that some damn man is coming down the chimney when I'm buying the gifts. Anyway, getting back to the point here. The fact of the matter is this, okay? He leaned into it. Tony Khan leaned into it. Number one, he didn't have Christian signed to a contract when he had Big Show come out to that announcement. Number two, he knew exactly what he was doing by doing that Hall of Fame announcement and having them on social media pumping it up. He knew exactly that people were tuning in thinking it was CM Punk, John Cena, who I've said John Cena would eventually come to AEW. Well, John Cena's not going to come to AEW with this crap going on. Brock Lesnar and God knows whoever else we were thinking about. He knew that those things were going to happen, and he willingly accepted that just so he can get more pay-per-view buys, because on Sunday night, it was the most competition AEW's faced in a really long time. You got the All-Star Game, and you got Meghan and Markle talking about stuff going on in the royal family. So I understand that, but I still don't like that. That's BS to me, and that's old WCW/TNA BS. And also another thing is this. They've always said, and at the beginning they made this statement, hey, look, we will not be hiring WWE guys unless of certain special circumstances. And now all of a sudden, everybody and their mom are getting AEW contracts from WWE. You got Miro, you got Big Show, you got freaking, what else? Christian Cage. You got plenty of other people out there. It's getting absolutely ridiculous now. I don't know what's going on with AEW, but they just need to calm down on this, and they need to focus. I like what CM Punk said in his Q&A. He said it. I think they should focus on what they have. And AEW should focus on what they have instead of going out and doing it. And I'm going to say this right now. Just like in the NFL, we talked about it obviously with Dak Prescott getting his contract and whatnot, and how the salary cap is being impacted because of COVID. We talk a lot about on this podcast, and have talked a lot about on this podcast, about having a union. I think also wrestling and the wrestling in general should have a salary cap, because what it's going to do is it's going to prevent these wrestlers, these old-time wrestlers coming in, getting main event spots and getting big money. Because guess what? It puts the pressure on the writer. You see that guy, that 47-year-old Christian? We just gave him a $5 million deal. We got to put him in a main event match with Kenny Omega right now, because we need a return on our investment. If you have a salary cap and some type of cap that kind of limits how much money Vince McMahon, Tony Khan, whoever else is out there can spend in the United States, then it's a huge situation, and then launch for more parity. So I think a salary cap in wrestling is something that we might need to consider, maybe even more than a union.
I'm going to throw my take. Okay, this is not the MLS, okay? It's shit cap, okay? It's horrible. You don't want a salary cap. The union, I'll agree, but the cap is bullshit, okay? I'm going to say that, RKJ, man. I love you, buddy, but no.
I agree completely.
Why?
And first,
you
RKJ,
tell me, Jesse, that it's bullshit, and then not back up your facts. Because I'm telling you right now, if you have a super cap, Christian Cage ain't going to get signed to a 5-year $1 million contract or some type of crazy deal. You're not going to have all these old wrestlers. Big Show's not going to be signed as a wrestler or signed as a talent for a major amount of money. And you can spend money, because guess what's going to happen? You're going to have contract decisions coming up in about a year or so on Joey Janela, on Darby Allin, on Scorpio Sky, on Jungle Boy, some of your top talents that you build AEW originally out around. How do you think they feel now that they're kind of getting pushed aside? Their TV time is getting reduced for these old WWE stars. How do you think that they feel?
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, this is perfect. This is another thing I disagree with you on. Everybody in the wrestling community complains about when AEW signs big-time WWE stars or guys that left WWE. Okay, let me just explain to you that on this pay-per-view, most of the people that are getting over are the non-WWE guys. Darby Allin is with Sting. He's being built up as one of the top guys in this promotion. He dives off the top of a building onto Brian Cage. Adam Hangman Page defeats Big Money Matt Hardy, the WWE guy, goes over, and Adam Page joins the Dark Order, and now he's one of the most over guys. Orange Cassidy, one of the most over guys. He was featured on this pay-per-view as well. Ray Phoenix, Penta El Zero Miedo. Both those guys came out of this unbelievable. Ray Phoenix is now probably going to win the tag team championships. Penta is going to be fighting Cody if you watch Dynamite, okay, and talk shit about his kid and all this stuff. And then you look at Jungle Boy, another one of these guys we really want to be built. Jungle Boy has the best entrance in AEW right now, and he's one of the most over guys when he comes out, including his tag partner Luchasaurus. So where exactly, RKJ, are these old heads affecting the young guys building up? They're not affecting them, they're helping them. But Matt Hardy's losing to Hangman Page. Sting is helping out Darby Allin. The Ray Phoenix and Jungle Boy are winning these matches. Orange Cassidy's beating Chris Jericho. You know what I'm saying? I don't get what you're talking about. What you say doesn't exist. They're signing old guys, but those guys are doing the jobs for the other guys.
They're
boosting him up.
Time and they're taking money. John Moxley is a former WWE guy. They're taking time and they're taking valuable money from these wrestlers who could be going up. Let me be honest with you guys. Let me be honest with you about the AEW main event scene. How many real homegrown talent is in that AEW main event scene? How many do you think?
I just named them. Darby Allin.
AEW main event scene, Nick.
Jungle Boy.
They're not in the AEW main event scene.
Darby Allin and Ricky.
They're in the
Darby Allin and Ricky Starks were in the co-main event of this pay-per-view. I'm just saying.
You know what? Let me preference AEW main event by AEW World Title. AEW World Title.
The difference is you can only have two guys fighting for the world title, and Kenny Omega technically is a homegrown guy.
He's not technically a homegrown guy. Okay, he was known in Japan, and he was known in parts of the United States. So, no, you can't tell me he's a homegrown guy from AEW.
You don't think that Kenny Omega and John Moxley deserve to be fighting for the title here? You don't think Kenny Omega is the hottest thing in pro wrestling, maybe besides Roman Reigns?
Of course I do.
So what's the problem then?
The problem is they're taking TV time and money. And AEW said that we were going to focus on our stars, and it was going to take a lot to bring somebody over. And now we're seeing Christian is a main event guy. He's never been a main event guy besides TNA.
I don't think that necessarily Christian holding the title means he's going after it right now. I think if you're blind to think that Christian isn't eventually going to be in the main event scene, especially with the fact that he hasn't wrestled for a long time, right? You saw how Daniel Bryan was propped up. We now see how Edge is propped up. And Christian will likely, he deserves it, okay? That guy has went through a lot the last 7 years. I don't think that's a problem. Again, do I think that they should have announced his signing like they did? No, but Christian's a big name and should be eventually fighting for the championship. He should just be putting a guy over, not winning it. And Moxley is putting over Kenny Omega right now. He's lost 2 matches to him now.
And then
Miro, I know Miro won, but Miro hadn't got a win, so he deserved one. Matt Hardy put over Hangman Page. Cody Rhodes is putting guys over left and right. He wasn't even close to winning that ladder match. He's now going to put Penta over most likely.
You don't know Cody Rhodes in a few months is going to have to go to the birth of his child. So he's going to put people over now. But will he put people over when he comes back? That's the question. I didn't necessarily see that too much happening when he was on that run with the TNT Championship.
I'll say Cody isn't a former WWE guy either. He's one of the EVPs. He's one of the guys that created this company. So I don't think he counts. I'm just saying the older guys that we know are putting guys over. By the way, I think the best moment of this whole pay-per-view, we're going to have to move on to UFC. I'm going to get your thoughts again, Jesse, just on what you think about what me and RKJ Man have said. Best part of this pay-per-view, Max Caster calling out Governor Cuomo in his little spiel before the match. A very underrated comment. He said that. I can't believe he got away with that, but he's not wrong. Jesse,
not looking good.
Jesse, what have you thought about what we've talked about here? Do you agree with points on both of us, or what's going on with you?
I mean, actually, I do agree with some of the points that you guys brought out, Nick. And Ryan, you brought out some good points, but also during that time, all I see is these former WWE stars building up, boosting these young guys, these up and coming new guys in AEW on the roster. They're building up their mobility, they're building up their promos and everything. So it's a win-win situation for both of them.
I agree completely. And that's it. RKJ, man, you're not seeing that. These old guys are helping AEW. They're not hurting.
You might not like it, RKJ, man, but they are helping. It's
Man,
just
let
going
me
to
just tell you
We
something.
need a woman to help the women's division. That's the thing we need.
That's something that needs to be helped.
Yeah, okay.
Let me tell you
we all agree
something.
on that?
On International Women's Week, man, that women's match was absolute dog shit. It was terrible. It was steaming shit.
Look at that. He knocked his camera down.
That's how upset he was.
Okay, we'll end the AEW stuff. Agreed. We'll end on that perfect ending. Okay, let's move on to UFC 259. Lots to talk about here. RKJ, man, we're gonna involve you in the stuff that you know about. We're gonna Jesse and I are gonna kind of riff about this pay-per-view a little bit. Jesse, your thoughts on what's the pay-per-view and then what's happened after the controversies involving the Monster CEO. What is Israel Adesanya do next? Aljamain Sterling being the bantamweight champion. What are your thoughts on the pay-per-view, and what do you think is coming up next for a lot of this stuff?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I had a little bit more expectations on this pay-per-view card. I'm not saying it undersold. There's some great fights and there's some kind of boring, And I understand these guys trying to be methodical, trying to win over the other opponent. As for the main title fights, there's a lot of shit you could go on. But as for, I can actually agree with you guys. Amanda Nunes has no opponent left on front of her. So, I mean, she has nobody to face. She went through Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, Meghan Anderson, who just saw lose.
Chris Cyborg.
Ronda Rousey. You name them. She's knocked them all down. Shevchenko twice. I mean, who does that? Nobody has ever done that. And unbelievably, I think she's going to shut down a women's division. I don't know which one, but she's going to shut them down. And she's probably going to retire as the GOAT. I mean, look, I can't blame her. She's going to go in that exclusive club that goes out as a champion. Go ahead, Ryan.
I have a question. Did they air a different Amanda Nunes commercial for this UFC card?
I don't think they produced that commercial, so I think that counts. They didn't produce any Modelo and Amanda Nunes commercial. I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. Unless it's in Spanish, and then you got to watch some Mexican channel. So, okay. And as for Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, you know what? It was a pretty good fight. It was back and forth. Mostly Aljo putting under pressure of Peter Yan, and then Peter Yan slowly taking over during the late rounds. I mean, it was stupid from his corner to tell him throw that knee, even though Aljo was on his knees, stalling for time and from breath, and and Peter Yan should have known better not to throw that knee, and Aljo should never stalled. If you're gonna fight, you fight, but if you're gonna go on your back, if not, threaten your opponent with he could ankle pick him, or he could just go for a submission. I mean, look, I know he's attempted it in the earlier rounds, but I mean, Aljo, I expected a little more class from Aljo afterwards, and Peter Yan as well. But who knows how this is going to be? All I know is they're going to be immediate rematch right afterwards. Dana White even said it in the post-fight fight interview. He said there's going to be an immediate rematch between the two. Yeah, I mean, and as for Adesanya and Blachowicz, I mean, Blachowicz did not took it to Izzy, so Izzy had a tough fight ahead of him. Very methodical, very it was technique for technique, and Blachowicz came out for 2 takedowns and he came out victorious. But I mean, I called it was going to go for all 5 rounds, and I expected Izzy not to give him the easiest time in there. So
yeah, I mean, it's so much to talk about with this. RKJ, man, I want to turn to you about Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan. You've seen the knee now that is, it's one of the more troubling and questionable strikes I've seen in UFC. So what are your thoughts on what happened in the fight, and then what are your thoughts on after the disqualification ends up being the bantamweight champion, and the bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling has done a couple photo shoots, is celebrating winning by disqualification?
Yeah, I don't like that. That makes Sterling look like a bitch. The fact of the matter is it was a pretty solid fight. I guess evenly matched, but man, that knee was brutal. I saw it in slow motion just now before we started doing this podcast, and oh my God, you can feel the pain from that knee. But I have to ask you guys a question. How is that illegal? I really don't know how it was illegal in a sport that has so many takedowns and where you're allowed to pummel a guy on the bare ground when uncovered. How is that illegal? Explain to a casual fan like me how that's illegal. It was a brutal hit. It was a brutal knee. Don't get me wrong. And I could understand if it was, to his balls, but it was to his head. So what happened?
So Jesse, do you want me to explain it? Or do you want to explain it?
I'll explain it, and you can explain it on your part. But there's two different rules to, especially in the American associate organizations and like such as Bellator, Combat de Americas, UFC as well, and so on. They have these specific set of rules. If they go to the night, especially with the elbow, if they go straight down, that's basically a lethal blow to the opponent, and cause them some serious brain damage, as well as the opponent on their knees. Depends where they hit them, especially if they're in the temple, or they could kill them. But as for one championship, where they actually allow that, like they allow their opponents getting kneed on the ground, even though they have both knees on the ground, it's very allowed. It's just a brutal sport, and you just got to play along with the rules, and you should already know the rules by the time you get into the organization such as UFC or One Championship, respectively.
Well, I understand that, Jesse, and I completely understand Peter Yan getting disqualified and him losing his championship. But I'll say this in regards to your point. I mean, isn't every blow pretty much in UFC almost like brain damage? It can cause brain damage. You get kicked to the head, that's brain damage. You're on the ground, you're pummeling somebody, that's brain damage. You got somebody in a rear naked choke or some type of submission hold, that's brain damage. You're losing oxygen to the brain. So, I mean, what he did, I looked at it and I expected to see something really bad. And don't get me wrong, it was bad, but I expected to see something like egregiously bad. Like Nick said in our group chat, it was like WWE shit. Like I expected to see that.
No,
and to be honest with you, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, that's bad, but is it as bad as what people are saying? No, I think these people are overreacting.
RKJ, I'll put it this way. Imagine if a guy is face down toward the cage, like the cage portion of the ring, and a guy just takes his knee and jumps as high as he can and lands on the back of his head. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think obviously the rule is meant for the worst possible thing. Imagine if a guy's partially knocked out and the guy just takes his elbow and just does it. It could be, like Jesse was saying, it could be a lethal blow. So I think the reason the rule exists is not for what Peter Yan did, because Aljamain Sterling was acting like a bitch before that. He put his hands down and he was on purpose forcing Yan to not knee him. So Sterling kind of almost had what was coming to him, but the rule is not meant for that. The rule has to be in place because if a guy were to run as fast as he can onto a downed opponent and knee him against the side of the cage, that could kill the guy. You know what I'm saying? And there's other things that could kill a guy too. You hit a guy in the back of the head hard enough, a guy could get killed. They don't allow it in boxing. I guess they allow it in pro wrestling for some reason. But I think that rule is for the worst case scenario. What Peter Yan did isn't going to kill anybody necessarily, and Aljamain Sterling had it coming. But I think the rule is meant for the worst case, the worst case scenario in this.
Such as being concussed. Aljo was concussed like straight after that. Some people, he had his fair share of critiques saying he kind of milked it. Segura has come out and said it. Even some of the other people thought he milked it as well. And then they apologized to him right afterwards. So, I mean, Look, there's the point like when you get hit in the nuts and you kind of overdo it. Like sometimes like Usman does it when he gets hit in the nuts, he kind of overdoes it. He's like, oh my nuts. But like you get hit, you can barely get tapped in the nuts and you're freaking dying down there. But you got to learn to absorb those hits and just move on because you're not going to be there. Like you're just going to be there for a full 25 minutes or 15 minutes, depends how many rounds they're going for. And you just cannot stop for time as much as you want to, but you cannot stop because you got to either compete or forfeit the fight. You got two choices right there.
Well, I tell you one thing, Jesse. I'm not just gonna move on after another man hits me in the nuts or I get hit in the nuts, man. If it hurts, it hurts. So I'm never gonna say somebody's overselling or overreacting or flopping in UFC just because somebody got hit in the nuts. Okay, that hurts. Okay, speaking as someone who's gotten hit in the nuts, but I will say this. I mean, yeah, some people may go to the extremes, and sometimes you're going to sell, and sometimes you're going to do it. We see it in other sports, in the NBA with flopping or whatnot. Maybe it's UFC's version of flopping. All I know is when I saw that knee, was it brutal? Yeah, but I'm going to be quite frank with you. I looked at it, and I said to myself, I think people are reaching a little bit too much calling Peter Yan such a dirty fighter and whatnot on social media.
Look, I agree with you with that part. Aljo could have continued because right afterwards, he did an interview, and then after that, he was, kind of flashing the bell like he actually won it, like off Peter John's like beating him.
Fuck off with that too. Like, don't do that shit.
Like, if you could take
Cejudo, like, dude, you're not the champ. You won the champ because another guy fucked up. You didn't. By the way, Sterling would have lost the fight. He absolutely would have lost the fight. Damn. Yeah, the one thing I heard Brendan Schaub say after this too is if you're a fan and you're wondering if Aljamain Sterling was such an actor, right? Y'all would have lost 2 points, and Sterling had won a round, so technically Sterling would have won the fight if the knee was allowed. If the knee didn't end the fight, Sterling would have won based on points unless he got knocked out in the 5th round. And then also Sterling would have lost the fight if there was never a knee. 100%. I think you can agree with me, Jesse. Sterling would have lost the fight.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's the controversy comes in. Is that, only because of that knee is Sterling the champion. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, look, the only way I'm going to also throw that is slowly you could tell the difference between the two. Like, one was still getting started. One was still in there with good momentum. Aljo came out rushing, and he kind of blitzed. Like, it's kind of like what Conor McGregor does. He comes out and blitzes, and then he starts gassing out towards the end of the last few rounds. And that's what Aljo kind of did the same thing. He blitzed Jan. And then he made that mistake, and he slowly gassed until the 3rd round when he started going back on his knees. Because, look, Jan was throwing him. He was flipping him over. He was throwing him, and Aljo was just stalling for time. He was trying to stall for him a little extra time to catch his breath. And you could tell he was fading. And then towards the end, whether it's for the last 2 rounds, he would have lost anyways, in my opinion. A lot of people can disagree with me or agree with me. Doesn't matter. Share your opinions.
I mean, the referees we'll get into in a second kind of sucked that night too with a lot of the 10-8 rounds and stuff like that. Let's get to Nunes real quick. I think the only person that Amanda Nunes should be fighting next in the featherweight division, which is 145, is Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison is a one championship fighter. Kayla Harrison is
not on PFL.
PFL, excuse me, not one, PFL. Kayla Harrison is RKJ, what I would call Ronda Rousey 2.0. She's a judo master. Like, she kicks everybody's ass. She's a huge woman, no disrespect. She's ripped. This girl dominates every single person she fights, a lot like Amanda Nunes. Now, I will say this. There's still the bantamweight division that has some contenders. And so Nunes should, as long as she can defend the title, should be defending the title. But I think the only legitimate opponent Nunes is going to get, because, a girl like Shevchenko is not going to fight her again, is a Kayla Harrison. Realistically, I don't really want to see any Nunes fight unless it's Kayla Harrison. She's so good that it's a problem. Right. And so, unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. All respect to Amanda Nunes. And, she's a first-time mom. And I guess the mom stuff didn't affect her at all. Because she beat Meghan Anderson. within 2 minutes.
I told you,
that was not
a parent, it's like I'm gonna kill for my child now. Like I gotta do whatever I can to take care of my baby. Look, it's a situation, honestly, where the only person Amanda Nunes need to be fighting is Dana White for more money, or Vince McMahon for more money. That's the only people she needs to be fighting. There's nobody else that's on her level right now. They should just get rid of the division at this point. They should just get rid of it and come back in another year. It's terrible. It's awful, and it's a complete waste of our time. And you're building up Harrison like she's the next Ronda Rousey. Well, guess who Amanda Nunes beat? She beat Ronda Rousey. So why would I want to see the Ronda Rousey 2.0 get her ass beat again by Amanda Nunes? It's just not going to be good. And then you're going to ask me to pay $50 for it, or $55 or $60 on ESPN Plus that can barely work. So no, I'm not doing that. It's not working.
Look, the difference between Kayla and Ronda is that Kayla has better hands than Ronda Rousey at this point. Her hand skill, her skills are kind of, fair enough, fairly superior than Ronda Rousey's. Ronda Rousey was best known for her judo. She has always done that, submissions, but we never seen her put in a striking clinic against any other opponent. And the opponents she's faced off, they're subpar. They're not the best. And when
I should rephrase it. Ronda Rousey is Kayla Harrison 2.0. Kayla Harrison's better than Ronda Rousey. I should have said that in the beginning. We believe Kayla Harrison's better than Ronda Rousey, and obviously Ronda Rousey dominated the sport. Now, I think there's way better women that are fighting than when Ronda Rousey was opening up the division. No disrespect to Ronda Rousey or those opponents, but realistically, if Ronda Rousey was fighting in the UFC now, we wouldn't be thinking of her as the GOAT. We'd be thinking of Amanda Nunes. She might even be losing to Weili Zhang, Valentina Shevchenko. I don't remember exactly what division she fought in. So, Kayla Harrison, again, I only want super fights with Amanda Nunes. And no disrespect. Actually, no disrespect to her opponents. You ain't going to win. You ain't going to win against Amanda Nunes. Kayla Harrison, because there's a level of unknown, is where we're going to point to. But besides that, I think the only other super fight I want to see in the women's division is Zhang versus Shevchenko. So, and obviously Shevchenko's already lost to Nunes twice. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
We're going to see Zhang versus Rose Namajunas. So
are we going to see? We're going to see Shevchenko versus Andrade too, right?
Yep.
Those are two fucking good fights. Like for women's fights, those are the best you can do right now. So UFC, they have a problem with Amanda Nunes being too good, but the other champions in UFC are absolutely facing the tippy top opponents. Speaking of facing tippy top opponents, we had a champ fight. Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. Jesse gave his thoughts. I'll give my thoughts now on this. I totally thought Adesanya would be able to pick apart Jan Blachowicz. Jan had some struggles in the beginning of his career, and he wasn't the best fighter. He's had amazing knockouts of Luke Rockhold, Dominic Reyes to win this championship. But that was all he was essentially doing, right? There was not much to Jan Blachowicz's game. And the only question was, Israel Adesanya, number one, will he make weight, right? In the fact that will he even get up to enough of a weight to make?
Without a problem.
There was rumors that he'd be in the 190-pound range. He ended up being around 201, 202, right? Yeah. But the difference with that is Israel Adesanya comes in there at 200, right? Maybe even less after the weigh-ins. Jan Blachowicz, because he fights at light heavyweight and he's fought at heavyweight before, comes into that fight 220, 225, right? So that is a 30-pound difference for a fight. We see that in heavyweight occasionally. We do not see that in light heavyweight, right? So what ended up happening in this fight is Jan Blachowicz essentially used his size, and Adesanya was not big enough, and because of his size was mainly the reason he lost this fight. So unfortunately, we now have Adesanya probably not fighting John Jones, in the near future at least, and probably not fighting at light heavyweight or heavyweight for a while. And I think the only way Adesanya would be able to fight at heavyweight is if he committed to getting up in that way. I don't know if his figure can do that, but, this fight went exactly the way it should have if you thought there was going to be a size difference, and there was. So I just think Adesanya, is a mismatch because of his weight. I still think he's technically better than Jan Blachowicz. I still think he's one of the best fighters in the UFC. But he'll go back to middleweight and he'll probably dominate the division, and maybe he'll bulk up and take a longer time getting ready for a light heavyweight fight. But I thought this fight went exactly how you should have thought it went if you were looking at the weight. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I'm gonna throw in another thing is that props to Israel for going up a weight class for sure. I mean, there's hardly ever you see champions going up a weight class or down a weight class to challenge the title holder. But a lot of people, man, did not give Blachowicz. He's a big underdog in this card, and he is very technical. He actually started using his jab, and he started getting to Adesanya. But you don't see that in a middleweight. You don't ever see no other middleweight start throwing those jabs at Israel Adesanya, and they were hitting.
It doesn't affect you so much because of the power too.
No, not just affect them. Like you said, Blachowicz used his size. He used his whatever wrestling background he had, and Adesanya had no answer for that. And it's a funny thing that Cejudo kind of brought it out on an interview. He said, "We never seen Adesanya fully being pushed to his limits. It's like we can see what he's amazing when he's standing up, but how good is he on his ground game? Is he good as wrestling defense? How good is his jiu-jitsu?" And it was self-explained in that fight with Blachowicz, and he still has a lot to learn and pick up from.
Yeah, no. RKJ, man, what are your thoughts on this fight? Obviously, Izzy trying to be a champ, trying to eventually fight John Jones in a super fight. That it's something that you would have been looking forward to. What are your thoughts now that Adesanya kind of didn't get dominated, but he got taught a lesson here that he was not big enough, and that now he's going to have to go back down to middleweight, and John Jones, probably that fight isn't there anymore.
He looked like a small child compared to Blachowicz, to be honest with you.
He was targeting Blachowicz though.
Yeah, I mean, but like it's just one of those situations where it's just difficult when you go up a weight class and you're fighting someone so much bigger than you. I was disappointed in Israel because I was hoping he was going to win this fight. I was hoping we were going to get John Jones sometime in the fall when we can have fans back after this pandemic's over and people are vaccinated, and we would have a dominant super fight card. Unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get that. I think John Jones was talking shit on Twitter and saying how I don't even think this guy's worth my time anymore. So I don't know where it goes. This is the second straight person who I put my faith in. And I've said to myself, well, this guy is the face of UFC, or he's a big time star. First one obviously being Conor, and the next one being Israel. And they both failed me. So I have no clue where Israel is going to go after this. Like, I really have no clue because
he's going to go back to middleweight.
Dominating this fight.
Yeah.
What?
He'll go back to. He's still the middleweight champion, so he's going to defend that title against. Who's he going to fight against? Darren Till or Vettori, right, Jesse?
It depends who the winner is between Darren Till, Vettori, or it could be Whitaker again. I mean, there's a possibility.
Whitaker fight Costa though.
Yeah, I mean, it depends who are the winners of these two competitors. And Israel's going to take his time and sit back, and he's going to wait it out who's going to be his next opponent, because it could be either Till or the winner between Costa, Vettori, and so on. I mean, there's just a lot of fighters still trying to get that number one title picture. And
any of those fights, by the way, are dope. Like, they could happen with Adesanya. Like, those fights are definitely worth watching. Like,
but they're not a mega fight like John Jones.
Exactly.
He just lost out on a lot of money. And you can't lose major fights like that on the way to something bigger. You just can't. Just ask Conor and what happened with him and Manny Pacquiao. Lost hundreds of millions of dollars just for getting knocked out by Dustin.
RKJ, if you want to put your faith in somebody, put it in John Jones. This guy's never lost. And now he's moving up to heavyweight. And
he's been disqualified but never lost.
Confirmed, yeah. It's been confirmed by Dana White that he is going to fight the winner of Ngannou and Stipe. So, yeah. So that you'll get your title fight. And shout out to John Jones. Obviously, I'm Arizona Cardinals fan, Chandler Jones' brother. So shout out John Jones. But go ahead, just.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting. Who's John Jones going to be facing between Ngannou and Stipe? I mean,
wait, hold on, Jesse. We'll get to that in a couple weeks. All right. I watched the rematch. I watched the rematch of Ngannou and Stipe the other day.
Yeah.
Late at night. Oh my goodness, I can't believe Stipe took some of the shots he did. I might be changing my opinion about who's going to win that fight. We'll see.
When's that fight, Nick? When's that fight?
I think it's in 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's either at the end of April or sorry, at the end of March or early April. So it's coming up soon.
WrestleMania weekend?
No, they don't do that kind of shit. Yeah, they'll do it before WrestleMania for sure. Yeah, so we'll be able to watch that for sure.
But even if they do around WrestleMania, they're gonna outsell WrestleMania.
That's true.
Okay,
I'd rather watch. I'll watch Ngannou any day rather than fucking Bobby Lashley. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you that right now.
I'll never forget Ngannou last year knocking that dude out senseless. It was disturbing.
It looked like an animal killing another animal. It was bad.
It's like watching Bigfoot versus a boar, and Bigfoot just knocking the boar out.
No doubt. All right. So my other thoughts. So what else happened on this card, real quickly? We had just if you want to go back and watch the pay-per-view, which you probably won't. Tim Elliott talked shit to Jordan Espinosa about beating women in the middle of a fight. Joseph Benavidez took another beating. It might be the end of his career. Dominic Cruz called out the Monster CEO for a fight after his fight. Two of my Serbians. One, we went 2-0 on the night. Alexander Rakic, boring fight, but he won against Thiago Santos. And then my boy Uros Medic with an absolute dominating win. By the way, also I'll tell you this. The two most attractive, no homo, attractive men fought on this card. Drew Dober and Carlos Ulberg. Absolute man rockets. It's a hockey reference. Nobody will get it. But those guys, you talk about like if they end up getting to the top of the division, it's ridiculous this weekend.
I mean, there was one guy we did not mention in this podcast.
I'm going to mention him right now. Okay. The future lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. That Islam Makhachev is Khabib 1.0. Khabib is Islam Makhachev 2.0. This is a Kayla Harrison Ronda Rousey. Islam Makhachev is better than Khabib. I'm just saying that right now.
No. I mean, look, I'll say this.
Yes, he's going to win the championship, and he's going to be better. He has better striking. It's the exact same comparison.
Yeah. I did say in the past podcast, and at least I think around my first appearances on the podcast, I said Islam Makhachev has better hands than Khabib.
He's unbelievable.
And and Islam wants to pick up where Khabib left off, and he wants to end Tony Ferguson's career. He wants to help him retire, he said.
Jesus.
And
he will too.
And it's interesting.
Yeah, but so Islam Makhachev dominating win, one of the most brutal arm triangle chokes I've ever seen in my life on that card too. I also forgot to mention Sean Brady, big win on that card too. So Jesse, real quick, actually, RKJ, man, just your last thoughts on the UFC. Jesse and I are going to go into the next fight real quick after that. Do you have any other last thoughts on UFC 259?
No, but I'm hoping for a card as good as this one when we get fans back, because I'm looking for that next super fight. Obviously, I've been talking 2 years, 3 years about Khabib and McGregor. That doesn't look like that's going to happen ever now. I was hoping John Jones and Israel Adesanya was going to happen. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. I even threw out Brock Lesnar and John Jones for like 2 years, and I don't think that's ever happening either. So what do you got, Dana White, to make me interested in a couple more months when we get fans back in these stands? Because it's going to happen eventually. What do you got to make me emotionally invested?
Fair point. We have a lack of super fights as of right now, which is to hardcores doesn't really matter, but for a guy like RKJ, I can understand that take. Jesse, let's end this podcast talking about Belal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards hasn't fought in over 600 days. It's all due to COVID, 100%. He was originally scheduled for the first card that was supposed to happen when COVID hit. So it was around this weekend, to be honest. And then he's had about 4 or 5 fights canceled since then. So, and before that, he had not fought for a while before that. So over 600 days, Leon Edwards coming back. He's a top 5 ranked contender in his weight division. And he's fighting Belal Muhammad, who got a big win over Lima's brother, Diego. The Douglas Lima is the champion in Bellator. Jesse, what are your first thoughts on this fight, this big main event coming up this weekend?
It's about time that Leon Edwards has got his fair shake. I mean, dude, that guy has the worst luck ever. Yeah. I mean, you've been giving a bunch of guys from Usman to Kobe Covington to Masvidal and then these other guys that you had prior before that cancel either because he got sick or because he got COVID and all injuries. I mean, the guy had the worst luck, and now he's finally getting his dues. Well-deserved dues. I mean, that guy's itching for a fight, and you should give the man the fight. I mean, he's earned it. He's up there. He's one of the best welterweights. Give the man a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down for him to win and possibly fight a guy like Kamaru Usman, too. There's a lot of question marks with Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. I'm down for Leon Edwards versus Usman if he can get by Belal Muhammad. I think he will, Jesse, because I think what we've seen recently, especially with this pandemic, is guys that fight on short notice don't end up winning. There's actually a guy on this card, Manil Cape, who's a flyweight who was supposed to fight, who was supposed to have kind of a big debut in the UFC. He fought a couple weeks ago, earlier in 2021, on super short notice and got beat. He's now fighting. We expect him to fight better, right? Yeah. I think Belal Muhammad, it's awesome that he got on short notice, but Leon Edwards, in my opinion, is too tough of an opponent on short notice. I think Leon's going to win this easy.
The only thing I'm just going to wonder if Leon's takedown defense, because Belal Muhammad is going to go for his wrestling background, and he's going to try to take down.
Exactly, and the stamina of Belal we saw in the Lima fight was amazing. So maybe there's a lack of stamina with Leon Edwards having been out of the ring for 600 days.
I mean, it could be possibly of anything, but I'm hoping that Leon Edwards is well prepared, and so is Belal Muhammad. I mean, these guys are the hottest, on the market besides, the other, such as Kobe Covington. They're up there, but they're not up in their level just yet. Maybe they are. Who knows? But, I mean, I'm just hoping these guys put on a show, and, these guys deserve all the attention right now.
Absolutely. RKJ, you were going to say something.
No, I'm just saying it's always interesting to see a fighter that it's coming back after a long layover versus a fighter who's been competing for a while. So I'm very interested to see how Leon Edwards is going to do coming back after all this time because of the pandemic. I really think with what's going on with the pandemic too, and all these camps having to have such strict COVID protocol, I think that takes a lot of people as well, which is why you need to have a longer camp compared to a shorter camp. You just need to get used to that. You need to get used to all that. You got to get tested every day. You got to have masks on. You got to do all these other types of things. It can take a lot out of you. So if you have to be in a short camp like that, it's going to be hard to get adjusted and deal with all those other things. I think that's the reason why during the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of fighters who are coming back, who are coming on short notice and fighting. That's why they're losing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And by the way, RKJ, Leon Edwards is from England too, so you can understand why there's so much issue of him coming out. England has been the exact opposite of the U.S. They've gone into a worse pandemic when we've been in a better one, and then they go into a better one when we're not. So it's like England's fucked him over completely. And then that's one of the reasons he hasn't been able to come over.
Has to make sure he don't have the variant. That's all I'm going to say. We don't need another COVID-19 variant running around here. We already got a few going around.
Are you talking about the royal family variant, or are you talking about the
Brexit?
I want both. How about we talk about both variants? How about that?
I'm just going to say this.
RKJ, this has been a question the MMA media has been asking at Leon Edwards. I'll let you answer it to end this podcast. Your thoughts on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry leaving the royal family?
I don't give a shit. The only thing I cared about was Tyler Perry actually saving them in Oprah and all the memes that have come out. That's the only thing I've cared about. Honestly, I really didn't care about the royal family or whatnot and all this whole stuff. Like, I haven't known Meghan Markle. The only thing I know Meghan Markle did was on Suits. So, I mean, everybody caring about her and all this stuff and crying over the royal family. Like, the royal family's not relevant or important. They have no real true power in England anymore. It's the parliament that has all the power now. So, I don't really care about it. It doesn't matter. But, man, Tyler Perry and Madea is everywhere. I can only imagine Twitter. Black Twitter went crazy on Sunday night saying that Madea goes to Parliament or goes to Britain is going to come back. Black Twitter is fantastic, guys. It's better than wrestling Twitter.
I 100% agree with that. I don't think anybody's going to argue that for sure. But I'll say this: the royal family is faker than pro wrestling. Okay, it's the stupidest fucking real life thing we have. A bunch of people that dress up in crowns and nice clothes and think they're. It's the dumbest thing ever.
You got to give him some of this stuff.
No, but Jesse, I'm not giving him anything. Plus, there's controversy. Prince Andrew's involved with the Epstein stuff. England, like, I'm not giving them any credit.
Without England, we would not have United States.
And by the way, how long are you going to be a prince for? Like, how long? This man's almost 40 years old. And he's still a prince. At one point, he's going to be on his deathbed, and he's just going to be announced as a king. So,
going off the rails. I'm just going to say, the only thing the royal family represents with me is sex trafficking and racism. That's the only thing the royal family means, and stupid play, like their play, whatever. Like, we're going off the rails. We need to end this.
Anyways, I'm gonna say one more thing. Leon Edwards, if you're stuck in England, you move your camp down to the United States, okay? So you can have those fights.
Absolutely. By the way, shout out Dan Ige trains in Orange County. He's fighting this weekend too. So just a little shout out to him, and let's try to get him on the podcast this next week. If he wins. If he loses, he's not coming on the podcast. RKJ, take it away and end this podcast in style.
Hey man, really quick, I just want to say on a side note with Soldier Boy, he's also feuding with the Iron Sheik on Twitter too as well. It's 2011 all over again. I'm in high school all over again. We're talking about Soldier Boy, we're talking about Bow Wow, and we're talking about Chris Brown. It is 2011, I am in high school, and ironically, guess what? My high school reunion's coming up very soon. So how about that, guys? Hey, man, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us. Do everything. But as always, raise a glass in the sky and salute the ring generals.